This is the captain of the Enterprise-E. Ship.
Podcasting, the final frontier. These are the ridiculous introductions I am forced to read at gunpoint, or should I say phaser point. Welcome to Ship, yet another in the long line of tedious Star Trek podcasts. This show is hosted by David Lawler and David B. Anderson. The two Davids will take you on a journey through time and space every 3 or 4 weeks, boldly podcasting where no podcast has gone before. Seriously? This is what you're making me read? Take it away, boys.
Good evening. You're listening to Ship, a Star Trek podcast. I'm your co-host, David Anderson, and with me, as always, is Mr. David Lawler. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm all right. When you were clearing your throat, then I was thinking of Steve Carell in Bruce Almighty when Jim Carrey makes him say all those ridiculous things. I like a do the cha-cha. The prime rib roast minister. All right. Well, before we start, we all know Jonathan Frakes is a big drunk. But you've never seen Frakes drunk until you've experienced it on Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction.
Ever gone mountain biking? What do you want to be when you grow up? What's the right tip? Have you called a plumber to your home lately? How superstitious are you? How much money would it take to make you spend a night in a cemetery? Would you display this as a trophy? Do you have a pet? Do you have a sweet tooth?
There's like an ensign telling us to laugh right now because the Klingons were telling us to not catch any bugs. Yeah, you don't know how red-faced I got. I mean, there were two things. One you sent. One was the big, epic freaking fart in the big box store that the guy does with the phone.
So funny. Although, was it an epic? Was it a big fart, or what? Did you not call it a two-cheek sneak?
I called it God's one-cheek sneak.
God's one-cheek sneak. Okay.
Yeah, because that's what Carlin always called it, the one-cheek sneak.
And I realized looking at that clip, it's actually not a worker at the store. It looked like somebody just went over to the thing.
Went over to the phone, hit the PA on it.
The echo is perfect. It's like, I mean, if you listen on the headphones or on a good stereo, it's in stereo, so it's a and it goes through the whole store.
I'm gonna have to put the clip in now. I'm gonna have to put the clip in. Just. Let's make this a fun, funny episode that has people on the floor. I showed my daughter this, and she just looks at me like I'm out of my mind. She's like,
she's a girl. And
I just don't understand. Girls don't get fart humor. And apparently, I mean, like my wife, too, gave me the same look. It's like, what is it with you boys and your farts? It's not funny. It's just a reaction. It's just gas.
Oh, no, it's genius. It's never
Fart humor is like one of the greatest things ever. Like Carlin said, farts are fun. Farts are shit without the mess.
Yes!
Okay, so we're talking about Star Trek First Contact, which came out in 1996, right? 2 years after Generations?
Yes, it was, I think this was a Christmas. This was like December?
November 22nd, 1996.
Oh, okay, it was a Thanksgiving. Okay, much like Generations. Okay.
So it directed first-time film director Jonathan Frakes, who had already directed several episodes. Some of the best and some of the worst episodes were directed by Frakes. Frakes' first episode that he directed was The Offspring, which is about Data's daughter, real daughter, Lal.
Yes.
And that was one of my favorites. I absolutely adored that episode. And then he went and directed one of the worst in season 7, the one where Beverly Crusher has sex with a ghost, which is just what the. You're
gotta give everybody their last big, episode, I guess.
I mean, even Gates McFadden got to direct an episode that year, and that was I really enjoyed that one. That was the one where they all de-evolved. Riker turned into a Neanderthal, Troy turned into a lizard, Worf turned into a snake. But this is the movie that I guess maybe if they had stuck to this formula would have made it possible for them to keep going. Unfortunately, Insurrection kind of ruined the franchise for a little while, and Nemesis was incredibly unpopular at the box office.
Yeah.
But it's a wonderful. It incorporates the two most popular or identifiable tropes of Star Trek, which are time travel and the Borg. And we're doing this whole season about time travel. And and we talked about Star Trek 4 before, and of course that being the most popular one of the this is one of the more well received critically and commercially of the 4 Next Generation movies, I would say.
Yes, I remember correctly. Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 stars.
Yeah, this one, First Contact, on a budget of $46 million, which was up from what, $8 million from the previous movie, earned $92 million in domestic and $150 worldwide.
Yeah, they're never huge internationals on these things.
Not back then, no. Or even then, even now, actually, Star Trek is still mainly an American, because we've been going over the James Bond numbers, because we are planning a James Bond series for later.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
And as it turns out, James Bond made most of its money overseas. It made good money.
They still do. They still. I mean, look, they cost. The funny thing is, those movies have evolved into just being expensive like every other movie. But back in the day, they were cranking them out at like sort of mid-low budgets. You know, all those Roger Moores, the early Roger, like the first couple Roger Moores were like
until
7, 8,
Moonraker.
9,
Moonraker had all
budgets.
those visual effects.
So when you have something like Man with the Golden Gun, and it only makes like 80 million, it makes like literally half of what Live and Let Die made.
Yeah.
Worldwide, it doesn't matter because the budget was like 10 million.
Yeah, relatively modest for what it was, but they had the international flavor. Star Trek, more of an American phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it didn't have even the worldwide appeal of, say, Star Wars, but it was enough to make money. It did make money.
They always made money.
So we start off with this. This is First Contact, and it begins. We get okay. This is why it was kind of important for me to see if I could find some way of incorporating Jerry Goldsmith's score into this, because I think this is his greatest film score. I think it's better. I think it tops the motion picture because it has emotion to it. There's a real emotion to it. It's one of Frakes' gifts. Same as Leonard Nimoy, what he did in Star Trek 3 and in Star Trek 4. He humanized these characters, and I think Frakes really contributes to the idea of making these people more human than they might have appeared on the TV show or the previous movie. Mm-hmm. And so the score is just fantastic for me. I love it. Absolutely. I actually
have I bought the soundtrack back in the day. It's actually got some stuff in there. I think he was, and I believe this is Goldsmith somewhat half-assing it in the sense that there's some selections that says it's credited to Joel Goldsmith, his son.
Maybe some. I don't know. I'm
not
sure.
I'm thinking he was probably scoring like 5 movies at once or something.
Well, he was always prolific. Yeah.
Yes.
He comes up with some new themes. He turns his Klingon theme into Worf's theme, which is interesting too. I thought that was fun.
Who conveniently just shows up. I mean,
Worf is in command of the Defiant. Technically, you might be able to give him that, but why would he be commanding the Defiant during a Borg invasion? That's my only problem.
We're going. They probably just needed all the ships that they could get to fight the Borg. If we're just throwing everything at it, it'd be my guess. I mean, there is a great line. Perhaps today is a good day to die.
Yes, prepare for ramming speed. Yeah, there's a big Borg attack. Picard has a nightmare about being a Borg again. We get this staggering opening shot and this pullback that starts with Picard's eyes, goes all the way out, goes out of this cube and across the universe, basically, kind of like maybe it was Frakes' nod to maybe 2001 or something like that. And it's a lot of fun, but unfortunately they don't want him anywhere near the Borg, so Starfleet orders him to patrol the neutral zone.
With the new, by the way, there's a whole bunch of things in here that weren't 100% explained when you come in. It's like there's a new Enterprise.
There is a new Enterprise-E. It's never given a beauty shot, unfortunately. You know, I mean,
no, it's just sort of.
You know how we spent 10 minutes? We
spent
15 minutes looking at the refit Enterprise and motion picture. We didn't even get anything. It was just like, oh, there's a new Enterprise.
They throw out a line that says, Enterprise is ready to go, and you have. How
about you give us 50
Geordi
seconds?
has new eyes. Geordi has new eyes.
Geordi has creepy new eyes. I don't like him. I really don't like him at all. I like him better with the visor. He looks like a Terminator. It's and also there's some weird makeup they did. They did this weird makeup job on him. I wrote in my notes here that Geordi looks like an android version of Geordi in this movie because he looks very.
It's just the eyes, I think.
Well, no, they give him this really close crew cut thing that's very evenly cut. And the makeup that they use on his face lightens his skin in a weird way that you didn't see in the Next Generation.
Well, the whole movie is lit in a sort of an interesting way. I mean, it's Frakes he's going for an effect. He's like Dutch angles and weirdness going on, and there is a director's vision on this. But I think my main complaint about this movie, and I do like this movie, but my main complaint about this movie is it's so like right into the action.
Yeah, I know.
This needs to be about 10 minutes. Honestly, it needs about 10 minutes, a little bit more at the beginning, and honestly, ending,
5. Give me 5 minutes. Give me a little bit.
The ending looked literally like it had we ran out of money ending of like, we're gonna buy.
Yeah, they just sort of leave right away. But yeah, I noted that too. The editing is breakneck from the beginning. 25 minutes in, the Borg have already invaded the ship. And that's 25. Yeah. So I mean, like, yeah, we could have had 5-10 minutes of a little bit more setup, maybe slow it down. But I understand the need to make this as exciting as possible. That was, I remember having that experience when I saw it in the movies, is that it was very, very fast compared to,
perhaps it was an attempt, because, this was the first Next Generation movie where it was just them, no Shatner, no nothing. Maybe it was an attempt of right into the action. You have no time to get your bearings or anything. It's so
strange because Insurrection goes the exact opposite way. Insurrection takes forever.
Yeah.
It takes for freaking ever, and even then it's not worth it. The journey, the story is not worth. Well, we'll get the Insurrection. I don't know, maybe in 2022.
Eugene.
So
emphasis on the fall.
So they're out off patrolling the neutral zone. They're starting to get distress calls. They're getting their asses handed to them by a Borg cube. It's just one cube. And so Picard decides to violate Starfleet orders, and I thought of Kirk in Star Trek 3 and Star Trek 4.
Yeah, how all of a sudden Picard is like, fuck it. I'm like, that's not Picard.
And then maybe Data is too, because Data says...
And Data is too, yeah.
He's like, to hell with our orders. It doesn't sound like Data at all. He would never say anything like that.
I know. I'm like, there's some things that happen in this movie where it's like, it needs to happen in the plot, so it's just sort of... I mean, we can talk about like the red letter media, and when they talk about it, it's like, this is movie Picard. This isn't TV. This isn't TV show Picard. This is movie Picard. There is a difference.
He becomes, well, yeah, I think it's probably, maybe in the holodeck where I'm thinking of that, but we'll get to that. So they have to have an excuse to get Worf on the ship, and Worf is in command of the Defiant. It's about to be blown up. They rescue him. The Defiant drifts away, so it can continue to be used on Deep Space Nine. And yes, Worf did get command of the Defiant once in a while. He would take the Defiant. Sisko would order him to take the Defiant on patrols and stuff like that, but he would never really kind of be involved in commanding this ship right now at this point in time where the Borg are attacking. But still,
don't they kind of create a convenience for him to be there in Insurrection too?
I forget what they do there. I think he's on a mission or something, and he's like, oh, Mr. Wolf, and then I believe by the time they get to Nemesis, they're like, fuck it, he's part of the crew. Well, he's part of the crew again. Deep Space Nine is over.
Yeah.
Worf is given, I believe at the end of Deep Space Nine, Worf is offered an ambassador position with Starfleet, ambassador to the Klingon Empire or something, because of the new General Martok has been named after he kills Gowron. Hope I didn't spoil it for anybody. But they managed to get Worf on board. They managed to get his crew on board, and everybody's fine. And we're back to where we are. We've reset, basically, so that we can get into this movie. Now, I do have a question for you.
Yes.
Is it ever adequately explained how the Borg have time travel technology?
Oh, man.
Because basically, what happens is the Borg wind up creating a nice temporal portal, and for some reason they wind up back in time, and they have completely assimilated the entire planet Earth, 9 billion, all Borg. And
well, I think that the whole original plan for them, because when they were going to attack Earth, maybe that's something they do to every planet. That they want to assimilate. But a lot of them, they go back in time.
But there's a big problem with that, is that why isn't the entire universe then assimilated if they have this technology? It's kind of like the Terminator. In the Terminator, for some reason, the machines have access to a time travel technology that enables them to send a Terminator back in time. But Cameron never explains where they get this time travel technology. He's just like, just fucking go with it. Fuck it, we have time machines.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Enterprise gets caught in the temporal wake, which means they're not affected by any changes in the timeline. Temporal wake is the magic bullshit machine of this movie.
Yeah, there's like, it's like it's conveniences for the plot.
Yeah. So they wind up going back to 10 years after the Third World War. Again, they changed the World War III thing.
Yeah, this is in 2063.
So that means that World War III ended in 2053.
I'm just starting to think of, because you did that review of Strange Brew. You know, I was the only one left on the Earth after the Holocaust.
10 years after war. It was actually 10 years after World War III, eh?
World War IV. It was like 10 years after World War IV.
Oh, World War IV. And they have a little cardboard thing that for the title. And he picks up a tiny little Statue of Liberty that's been broken. And he's wearing a jock strap, and 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 the van is a spaceship, and they just use the effect of it coming down on this thing in a mechanic shop. It's man, watch Strange Brew, everyone. One of the funniest movies ever made.
Did you run that past your daughter at all, or does she even take it? I don't even know.
Of what was your
A Strange Brew?
Did I run it past?
Yeah, has she experienced it in all of its glory?
No. Oh God. I don't know. The funny thing about, she's at this age where she doesn't want anyone to know how she feels. So she doesn't want to laugh. She doesn't want to cry. She doesn't want to show any emotion. She's kind of like Robert Patrick in T2. And she even runs like him too. So then we're introduced to James Cromwell and Alfred Woodward. I'm sorry, it's Woodard, not Woodward. And James Cromwell appeared in 3 episodes of The Next Generation and 1 episode of Deep Space Nine. He made 2 cameo appearances in Enterprise as Ephraim Cochrane, which is pretty cool. Actually,
at the beginning,
the second episode that he made was basically just repurposed from First Contact, but he does make an appearance in the pilot episode as an older Ephraim Cochrane before he disappears. James Cromwell had recently, at the time, been nominated for an Oscar for Babe. And he was wonderful in the movie, and Babe is I love Babe. I think it's a great movie. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen Babe in, like, forever.
It's a wonderful...
It is, but I remember it being great. I remember it being... It was a surprise movie.
It was a surprise nomination. I got Best Picture nomination as well.
And then they did Babe, Pig in the City, which a lot could argue is perhaps even a better and more ambitious film, and nobody went. Nobody cared.
Nobody cared. It was just... Babe had its 15 minutes of fame. It was an enormous hit. Alfred Woodward was nominated for an Oscar in 1983 for the Mary Steenburgen film Cross Creek, which was about Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings. Good movie, directed by Martin Ritt, and also she was really good in a John Sayles movie called Passion Fit. She's a fine actor. Unfortunately, and I know this might be not a popular opinion, I think she overdoes it a bit in this movie. She's a little bit.
No, I like her in this movie because it looks like she's like I'm an Oscar nominated actress and I'm in a fucking Star Trek movie. I'm just gonna have fun with this.
It was definitely Frakes probably Frakes they knew James Cromwell being in the 3 episodes that he was in TNG playing different alien. He plays a couple of aliens.
Frakes direct any of those episodes?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know he didn't direct the one that was called The Hunted that he was in. He didn't direct Birthright 1 or 2. No, he didn't direct any of them.
I have another question. It just popped into my head. Do you think that part of Frakes' contract for Generations was that he gets to direct the next one? Much like Shatner and Nimoy?
I don't think so. I don't think Frakes had the clout. Nimoy had the clout because Nimoy was, for all intents and purposes, the face of Star Trek. He was the most iconic.
But I'm sure he got support of all of the people, especially Patrick Stewart, saying, give him a chance.
Well, yeah. I would say, actually, you're probably right. I believe Patrick Stewart went to bat for him, basically, because Frakes, like I said, directed some of the great episodes of the show, including an episode we're going to talk about in a couple of weeks called Cause and Effect, which is another time travel episode. So he had maybe the creative clout. He went and said, "Listen, Rick, I know how to operate under budget. I can get this done for you. I know these people. They like me. Please give me this job. Please."
Yeah.
Because Frakes is really good. He just wants a job. He just wants the job. That's why he did Beyond Belief for Act or Fiction. Because they asked him, And he had produced, he helped develop Roswell. Do you remember that show Roswell? It was on UPN, I believe.
Yeah, I remember that. Also, remember, if you want to go way back, he was Captain America.
He was Captain America. He was also on a Dukes of Hazzard, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's when, I mean, man, there should be, I'm going to get sidetracked here, but there should be a show about like a couple of actors going through television and working on television in like in the 70s and 80s, and have them keep popping up in different shows as sort of guest stars and featured players and everything, because that's a show I would watch. I'm just saying.
Right.
And they could bump into Frakes.
He was like, I remember seeing Frakes on, what was it? Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers had a daytime talk show, and she had the whole cast of Next Generation on during the 6th season. And Joan Rivers asked Frakes, she asked him, have you ever thought of doing any other work? And he says, I'll do anything as long as I get to keep this job. So
Yeah.
he was he liked to stay employed, because being an employed actor is a very rare commodity. And he became a director. He wound up doing, what did he do? He did Thunderbirds Are Go. I remember he directed that.
Yeah, Thunderbirds, he did this movie, Clock Stoppers.
Clock Stoppers, and then he also did that TV show with Noah Wyle, The Librarian.
All right.
He produced
he
and directed it.
I kept hearing, and this was back days before the internet, when you'd pick up like an issue of Starlog and everything. They kept talking about how they were going to do a sequel to Total Recall. Somehow he had Dimension Films, and somehow he was always attached to it.
He was attached, but they did make
They never got it done.
Well, they made a reboot, and it was
that worked out well for him.
Yeah, and also, of course, he directed episodes of Discovery and Picard, because you don't say no if he wants to direct, because now he does have that clout. So, now I notice. Okay, this is another one of the problems. Frakes does try to give each character their moment. Unfortunately, Beverly Crusher is the most neglected of all the supporting players. She isn't really given much to do in this whole thing.
Well, he gives her more to do in Insurrection. Talking about her boobs and everything.
The boobs. Have you noticed her boobs have gotten more firm?
Yeah.
But they give a bunch of dialogue to the supporting players just to pad their parts, pretty much. But this is Picard's movie. It's mainly Picard's movie, even though it does divide up into 3 storylines about maybe a half an hour in. And there's, like we said, there's a much less setup time in this movie than all the other movies. It just sort of jumps right into it.
Now, you could say that, they give Riker stuff to do, but he's just sort of there to sort of advance the plot and direct the movie.
He's there, he's in the Zephyr Cochrane subplot. Picard
he can literally
is
come
Willie.
in and do his stuff like here and there, bits and pieces, while he's directing the actual movie.
So they go and they figure out that what the Borg are trying to do is prevent first contact. And so they go down and disguise them. It's very quick how they do this. There is no setup. There is no Kirk going, this is extremely primitive and paranoid culture. And make Spock cover up his ears or whatever else. I guess Geordi just wears sunglasses in case he freaks people out with his crazy eyes. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And I realized again, I want to kind of bitch about something that happened. It was both on, and I think you talked about it too, the continuity of like, if this is happening in 2063, and then if this, and then all the other stuff that happened on those other episodes where, the Earth, a part of California fell into the sea, or fell into the ocean. And then they had that big riot, but that somehow fixed everything. But then I guess everything went to shit quickly, because then everybody got nuked a few years later.
Well, then the idea, I guess, was that you had San Francisco in 2020 something, 2024. Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
And you got sanctuary cities. They managed to clean it up. They managed to start working on the actual problems that they have, the big social and financial problems that they had. And then what do you got? You got a eugenics war, possibly?
Yeah, where's Khan in it? He was supposed to be in the late 90s.
And then they go ahead and try to rectify that for Enterprise in season 4 with a nice 3-parter where, Brent Spiner plays the ancestor of Dr. Soong, creating genetic or something like that. Some kind of
Is Khan ever mentioned in that episode?
In the yeah, he is.
Oh, he is. Okay.
It's only mentioned as remember the Botany Bay, and it was like,
all right,
that's just a myth. No, he escaped. That.
Oh, okay.
So they did talk about Khan a little bit.
Well, will we get to that at some point?
Maybe we'll see.
I hope.
I know that for the next cluster of episodes that we do in the next season, I want to talk about. What did I want to talk about? Oh, the Mirror Universe is what I wanted to talk about. All the Mirror Universe stuff.
Oh.
And that also includes Discovery for all the people out there who love or hate it. So, back to First Contact, they go down, they dress up, Data has a confrontation with Lily where she tries to shoot him. He takes all these bullets and says greetings. Kind of reminds me of Jeff Goldblum and stuff.
That was something I'm like, even though he's an android, like those are bullets into his body. That's not good. That's going to cause damage to something, wouldn't it?
Probably not. But there was an episode where they were dressed up as characters from Robin Hood, and Troy shoots an arrow and it hits Data square in the chest, but he's fine. So he didn't really suffer any damage.
Right,
so
I
maybe
guess that fits with their continuity, I guess.
Maybe he can take it. Maybe he's got titanium under that. Maybe he is like a Terminator type.
But he's fully functional too.
But they kind of have a cheap reason to get Lily aboard the ship, which is that she passes out. Data says she requires medical attention. All she did was pass out. There was no indication that she.
No. Here's what happened. The doctor, this is where they give the doctor something to do, and she says, we're all going to need to get inoculated here.
Yeah,
but she'd been around there longer, so that's probably.
But there was no reason. They could have just left her where she was. They had no reason to.
No.
I
think she had to go. I think she had to go because she'd been there longer. Like they just showed up. Radiation. It takes a while. It probably had built up.
Again,
I think she said they had to get her to the ship.
She wouldn't have known that had she not scanned Lily. That's all. For all Data knew, she just passed out because this android just took a bunch of bullets. I was thinking about this throughout the movie. Picard causes more problems than he resolves. He seems to be his worst enemy as far as dealing with the Borg, dealing with these problems, and then having to deal with Lily later on. It seems to be all his problem.
It's the Picard movie of and this is the movie that everybody wanted. Everybody was saying maybe everybody that Borg movie.
Well, maybe everybody that wasn't a Star Trek fan, but I always liked to see Picard because he was cool and calm and composed, and he dealt with problems as they occurred.
He's got rage.
But here, he's really unhinged. He's completely out of his mind in this movie, basically.
I'm going to assume that was an intention of what they were trying to do. It's totally pissing him off because
he's not exactly youthful and boyish. So he can't have a fight with a Klingon on a planet that's about to explode and get thrown around like crazy. You don't buy it with Picard, him being able to handle that, but you do buy it with Shatner for some reason.
Well, and yet for some reason in all of these movies, at the end Picard has to do something very physical. I mean, in this he's fighting the Borg Queen, and the next one he's running around that sky that sort of butterfly looking thing in space, and he's running around doing things.
Yeah.
In Nemesis, he's basically beating the shit out of himself, and it's like he's always trying to do something
doing
physical.
These I don't know. He's like John McClane or something. He's like Bruce Willis in any movie.
Well, he's in pretty good shape in this, I will say.
He's okay. Yeah. For his advanced years, I would say yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get into the meat of the movie, which is the Borg take over the ship. And already more than half the crew is assimilated. And I'm thinking about this because some of this doesn't make any sense. I mean, what happens to the crew at the end of the movie? That's what I was wondering.
What happens to Data at the end of the movie? Half his face is ripped
off.
Half his
face. He can be repaired, though, but you can't.
Yes.
Even up to that point, there was no way of, we didn't have. Well, we sort of had 7 of 9 make her debut, but not until 97 as far as I know on Voyager. So we didn't really have an indication that you could completely, I guess, cure or heal people who have been assimilated. I don't know that Picard was completely all the way assimilated in Best of Both Worlds, except that he was given certain chips. And
he looked Borgy to me,
but he wasn't. I guess maybe they didn't have. They didn't wait like a long time. They got the machinery out of him before it fully integrated with his system.
I guess. When we watched that episode of Picard, kind of at the end, near the end, with Seven of Nine's sort of protege. I mean, like, to get like the stuff out of him, and they never really fully get the stuff. They never really get the stuff fully out of her.
Yeah.
And you would think if they got it all out of Picard, why couldn't they get it out of her?
And then there was poor Isheb, who also had the Borg component still in him.
They just ripped it out, I think.
But there are some genuinely frightening moments in the movie. The Borg take over the ship. The POV shots, it's kind of like Friday the 13th, shades of Ridley Scott in there. And then you have a little bit of retconning with temperature changes. They're talking about temperature changes to make the ship more like a hive. So it's kind of like connecting them to insects more. And then we have a queen, of course. And they're trying to get out of the Crusher gets one moment here where she's able to get Lily out, and then she activates the emergency medical holograph played by Robert Picardo, which is a nice little cameo.
Yeah, I like that.
And then Troy has managed to locate Zephram Cochrane. He's a big drunk, of course, and he likes Roy Orbison, so he's listening. And I think the Roy Orbison song, I think that was a Jonathan Frakes choice. I think he threw.
I gotta say, now I on the version I watched, and maybe it has changed since then because they got the rights, but when they do Magic Carpet Ride on the thing, it's a cover.
It's not
on my 1990s, and it's if you have to listen really close, but it's a cover. Now I have the soundtrack album, and it's the original. And it's not a cover, but for some reason on this 1997 Laserdisc, it's a very good cover. But I can tell.
I believe the one I was watching was my 2009 DVD set that I.
They might have fixed the music rights, and
it sounded like the original.
Okay, it's so close. If you listen again,
so you think they had like rights issues with the song for the Laserdisc release,
or maybe just the home video?
You have the original Laserdisc.
I have the original. Well, let's see. It's 97. It could have been a repressing, but I would think it's the same master was used. I'm gonna guess. It's probably just whatever the home video release in 97 was. Maybe there was some sort of rights issue. I don't know. I'll listen. Maybe I'll watch it again. But I'm like, it really sounded like a cover to me. But I also remember having the soundtrack album and listening and knowing that it was the original. But it was close.
And, okay, just my blanket statement on the movie itself. The human moments in this movie are the best parts of it. It's not just, the line must be drawn here, the bashing of things, insulting Worf and Worf threatening to kill him, things like that, assimilate that. Also, Deanna Troi getting drunk and passing out is one of my favorite bits of anything I've ever seen. I do have a question for you, another question.
Yes.
They don't have tequila in the 24th century? Because Troy says something about something called tequila.
Well, I would think that
they have whiskey.
They all drink Romulan ale, which is illegal.
They have scotch. They even have an ale. Miles always gets an ale and drinks an ale. But they don't have tequila.
Troy's half human, right?
Troy is half human. Yes.
Yeah, I would think she'd have been around. Hey, look, I don't know I know what tequila is, but I don't know my asshole from my elbow when it comes to booze or.
Well, tequila is a very common. It's used in margaritas.
Has the worm in it. I know that.
Some of them do. Some of them have the guave worm, and if you consume the worm, you will be consumed by hallucinatory visions. I'm told, but not all tequila has the disgusting little worm in it. But I also wanted to mention that Jonathan Frakes lost a little weight for this one. His weight keeps going up and down throughout the movie. Some shots he looks thin, and some shots he looks like he had a steak dinner. So, but he's wonderful in the movie. I think there's a definite feeling of camaraderie among everybody that I guess wasn't present when David Carson directed the first movie. Maybe it just didn't work that way.
I would think that there was just nervousness of, are we going to be able to pull this off?
And they did. Generations made money. It made good money.
It was like I think it made like $70-some million on a.
Made 75 domestically on a $38 million budget.
$30 million budget or something.
And then 38, and then 120 million worldwide. It did pretty good. Yeah.
That's a solid hit.
It's enough. it doesn't quite make its money back here, but it makes it back worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
then see, remember, it's always the video that they really make the money on those things, because a lot of the nerds, they got to buy their copy probably on VHS at the time.
yeah, but like all of these movies, with the exception of Voyage Home, did not clear $100 million in box office until the reboots came out.
Mm-hmm.
So, Data, they go out hunting for Borg, blowing them away and everything, but Data gets abducted, and I always had to wonder why. I know he has the encryption codes, but seducing him, as the Borg Queen does when she makes her staggering entrance, she comes out, and with skin, she like grafts human like skin.
Yeah, and I swear I just read something today that Data got laid.
I just don't understand how, because
he's fully functional. Well, he's fully functional.
Yeah, but where does he put it? And then I got no conversation with somebody on one of the stars.
For her, okay.
Where does he put it? And this person came back with a very smart answer, a very smart ass answer, saying maybe she has a USB port. And they just sort of had Matrix like sex by connecting USB ports or something like that. Anyway, that's Alice Krige. Alice Krige has been in a bunch of stuff. I remember her earliest role being in a movie called Ghost Story. Based on a Peter Straub book. And then later she was in a movie called Sleepwalkers, which is a Stephen King story.
Now, she does not on that last episode of Voyager when the Queen comes back somehow. That's not her.
No, it is. It is.
It is her.
Yeah, she appeared in the final episode of Voyager.
She did not, episode.
But Susanna Thompson appears as the Borg Queen in 2 episodes previous.
That's what I was thinking of. Okay, yeah.
So, but they did manage to get Alice Krige for the season finale of Voyager for a brief turn. The Voyager finale is kind of disappointing for me because they just they make it back, and then there's no time. It just sort of ends right there. I felt like it could have been longer, but the problem was that TV shows were getting a lot shorter because of commercial time. So it was like the pilot episode of Voyager was over 90 minutes, like 95 minutes, but the final episode of Voyager was like 82 minutes. So they cut out all this time for commercials. That's one of the big problems Enterprise had, because they had to figure out how to tell a story within 42 minutes, which was a problem, which is why they came up with the great story arc for season 3 and then multi-part episodes in season 4. So they were able to actually tell their story well. Just some episodes really suffer badly, and some in the final season of Voyager, the final 2 seasons of Voyager. Well, are really
I
bad.
will say, and when we get to it on those episodes, the wrap up on one of them is a bit abrupt. Yeah.
Which one? Oh, Carpenter Street? Is that
Carpenter Street? There's this sort of this happened. Okay.
Yeah, this happened. It was we'll get to it when we get to it.
Yeah.
So they abducted Data. She teases him with the possibility of having feeling, and I never bought it. I never bought that Data would ever betray Picard and.
Well, he says at the end, for him it was an eternity that the decision he had to make.
Right. So he was like basically playing possum throughout this whole thing with the Borg Queen. And then here,
remember it. That's what he always wanted. In fact, they finally gave it to him, sort of, bicentennial man style. He just wanted to be human. That was his whole sort of character journey. He strived to be as human as possible.
But how it was treated in Picard, I was really disappointed, because Data was a character. Like I said, I told you this before in a previous episode. As I asked other people, and they all seem to agree with me that the 2 characters identified with the most were not human. They were Data and Worf. I understood Worf's anger. I understood his pain. Michael Dorn's a great actor anyway. He was able to emote through all that Klingon makeup. And Brent Spiner, a fantastic actor. I understood what he wanted. And I understood that he would never get it. That was the heartbreaking thing about Data.
Well, they will. I'm sure season 2 of Picard, they will bring him back. I mean, he Sung the 12th. He's not dead.
Sung the 12th.
Jesus. He can do that.
And they all look alike. It's creepy. So the movie splits the leads into 3 groups. You have Picard with Lily going out throughout the ship, trying to elude the Borg and get back up to the bridge. You have Data with the Borg Queen being seduced by her. And then you have Riker and his group, which includes Geordi and Troy and Barclay, who makes a really nice cameo. Nice
Yeah,
from Schultz, wearing a piece. He was wearing a ridiculous hairpiece.
I thought he was on that whole show. He was wearing a ridiculous hairpiece, but I think
some pieces look better than others, though.
I thought because there's two broccoli moments.
Yes.
First, you see him for
Mr. Broccoli.
Yeah, he just shows up for like a second, going. Then he comes back. Yeah. Then he comes back like about a minute later as the scene is playing out. I'm like, I almost thought it would have been better to just have the moment at the beginning and then leave it there.
Can I just want to shake your hand? And Cochrane's like, oh, shut the fuck up. Cochrane is cool. I really like Cromwell in the movie. He was introduced first he was played by Glenn Corbett in a second season episode of where it's revealed that Cochrane lived, and he lived well into the 23rd century because he was kept alive by this entity. And he was lonely and he wanted to die. He just wanted to die because it's been 100 years. And they still talk on Enterprise. They talk about how Cochrane was never found, how he just sort of flew off in a ship and he was going to die in space. That's what he wanted to do. He just wanted to die in space. So they did keep really good continuity with Cochrane, even though it's not the same actor. But frankly, James Cromwell nails it, and he's completely on his game. He does a wonderful job. Okay, another problem I had with Data, with the whole Data story, was that he was very easily restrained, and I didn't understand why. He's supposed to have the strength of 10 men, basically. He beats the crap out of Worf when he gets a chance, you know?
It's the Borg. It's the Borg. They have Borg technology.
Borg, but it just looks like your standard kind of metal restraint. You know, he just needed one arm free, and he tried to escape and everything. And
come on, this is Star Trek, where rocks are made from styrofoam.
Rocks. Penis rocks are made from styrofoam, that wonderful Shatner meme that we always see. All right, Deanna sobered up quick. All of the backstory provided for Cochrane's benefit is the foundation of Enterprise. This is important, too. Everything that you see in this movie is the reason that Enterprise was the way it was. It starts with, Enterprise starts with a message from James Cromwell in old age makeup playing an old Cochrane. And how the movie resolves is the beginning of the relationship between Earth and Vulcan. But we'll get to that when we get to that.
Now, what is that quote? Don't be a great man.
Just be a man.
Just
and
be a man.
Let history make its judgment or something. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, that sounds really good, but I did this to get laid, okay? I did this to go...
I think, he said to get paid. He didn't say to get laid.
Dollar signs. He saw, but he wanted to live somewhere with lots of beautiful naked women.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. Okay.
Which is basically he wants to get laid. He did this to get laid. And I don't know. Riker seems to take that in stride, of course.
Oh, the smirk.
Yeah, because everything, it's sort of like you're reading about somebody, and it seems like they are a mythic figure. But then you get to meet that person. They turn out to be just as human as you. It's kind of, it would let me down. It would let me down.
Well, we're getting a lot of these profiles. Like you'll see like a History Channel docudrama about certain people, certain historical figures, and they don't pull any punches. They're not very nice.
I'm reminded of Winston Churchill in an episode of Family Guy. Where they say, some woman is talking to Winston Churchill, and he just responds, "Yeah, well, you're a fat bitch." You think that Winston Churchill is this great statesman, and here he is. He just calls somebody a fat bitch.
I'm sure he did many times.
I did. I mentioned earlier that Picard is uncharacteristically reckless in this movie, no doubt to his new status as action hero. We get a nice cameo. Oh, and here we go with the holodeck scene, and this is a major problem for me. There's a cameo from Ethan Phillips. He played Neelix on Voyager.
Yeah,
and he went uncredited too.
Yeah, he's not playing Neelix. He's playing a human.
He was hoping, like me, because I was sitting there in the theater, and I was going, "Oh, that's Ethan Phillips. He was Neelix," but you would only recognize him from Benson, because he was on Benson with.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah.
Renee Auberjonois, who was also on Ben. Now, okay, this is my main problem with this movie, David. The holodeck. Number one, I've never bought that you could just remove the safeguards from the holodeck and it suddenly becomes dangerous. It seems like a really horrible thing to have on a ship. And then we have the holographic machine guns. He dresses up as Dixon Hill. He dresses Lily up in an outfit at the time. They go into this club. He grabs machine guns, turns the safeties off, and starts killing Borg. And I'm like, if that's the case, just put the crew in the holodeck and give everybody machine guns, and they could blow away the entire Borg population on board the ship. If a holographic machine gun can kill a Borg but a phaser can't, I find that a real big flaw in the story. That's my main problem with it.
It's just a movie. It's just
he should have been like, okay, this is Picard. Everybody get in the holodeck, turn the safeties off, and get machine guns, because they'll be killed by holographic bullets, which I don't understand. You can fire at a Borg a couple of times, maybe knock a couple of them down until they adapt to phasers. It seems like machine guns are far more efficient.
Perhaps.
I got you. I stumped you.
Well, I never had an opinion on it anyway. By that time, I'm like, oh, okay, it's just this is an action movie. This is an action movie. There's not a lot. The only real character development I felt was in this movie was Patrick Stewart being very enraged and pissed off to pretty much the whole thing.
I've always seen, especially, the way the holodeck is, it just doesn't make any sense. They did this in Voyager 2, and maybe a little bit in Deep Space Nine. They didn't really go to the holodeck that much on that show, but the holodeck is a magic bullshit machine. That's really all it comes down to.
I gotta say, for a movie that you say is the best of the series, you're complaining a lot.
Of course, yeah, I have a lot of problems with it. It's the best of the Next Generation series, yes. The best moments, like I said, are the human moments. We even get a bit of a love scene between the Borg Queen and Data. They kiss. I don't understand why, though. It doesn't make much sense to me. But
well, she's embracing she's trying to tempt him by showing him all these sort of human things that he could be, that he could do.
I know they're trying to make her sexy and everything. They give her, but she's got all that shit in the back of her head, and I just, I would worry. I would worry that I might break her.
Yeah, she's fine.
So, and then we move on to, Picard gets up to the bridge with Lily. They come up with this idea because the Borg are trying to set up the deflector dish to send a message to, I guess, maybe the Delta Quadrant or wherever they came from, that would send the Borg over here. So then we have the whole deflector dish scene, which I thought could have been trimmed a little bit. It was a little too long.
And look, that's where the budget, it looks kind of cheap. It does look a little cheap to me.
Well, yeah, there's some bits there where it looks obvious that especially when they're flying through the air, that they're hanging on a harness or something. It kind of looks like that because he's spinning around a little bit, and I'm like, I don't know about that. But still, I forgot to mention Neil McDonough, who plays Hawk in this. Yeah. And he gets assimilated eventually. But I remember him from Minority Report. He played one of Tom Cruise's guys.
Oh, he's great. He's very recognizable, and usually he's going to be playing some kind of badass of some kind.
He is, yeah.
In this would have been early-ish in his career, though. This would have been like 90. This would have been made this like early 96 or something.
96. When did Minority Report come out? 99?
Oh shit, 2002.
2002. Oh,
2001, okay. 2002.
See, now Sci-Fi Channel at the time, there was a miniseries that they made called Tin Man. And
I remember him. I remember that. Yes,
he was the Tin Man. He was the titular character. But that was in
the 2000s.
That was it was a science fiction updating of Wizard of Oz, right? And you had Zooey Deschanel, and she played the Dorothy character.
It was a 3-part. It was a 6-hour 3-part that easily could have been trimmed into a.
But what was cool was they took they had a Neil McDonough day, and showed Minority Report and First Contact, and then followed by Tin Man. So he got a whole day of programming devoted.
Oh wow,
that was pretty cool. And then we get into, they managed to foil the Borg's plans, and blow up the deflector dish along with the Borg with them, and then they go in and they're talking about destroying the ship, and we have barely gotten to know this ship, and they're already talking about blowing it up. I'm really glad they didn't. But that's where we get some of Alfred Woodward's overacting, in my view, because she goes, blow up the damn ship! And he's like, no! It's really theatrical and big.
You were talking about her overacting. I must be done here!
This far, no farther.
No farther! And he goes, rock!
So, but then he decides, this was like right after he called Worf a coward, and I was like, what the fuck, dude?
Losing his shit.
And then he decides, okay, fine, I'll blow up the ship. We'll all just find a quiet island somewhere. We'll all get on our escape pods.
Well, why not? That's completely Star Trek logic, considering what they did in Star Trek 4. They're doing transparent aluminum. They got the glasses.
But
like,
you know, it's not going to end like that. It's going to,
no.
Everything's going to be fine. They'll have to recall all their emergency.
Well, I mean, if you remember in Nemesis, that's one of the things I like about Nemesis. At the end, he tries to do the auto self-destruct, but it doesn't work.
Right. It's always blowing up the ship seems to be like their
well,
big thing.
I mean, look, that would have been a good idea to blow up the ship, but it didn't matter.
So everybody leaves except Picard has to go save Data. So he goes in there, and they telegraphed earlier that the plasma from the warp engine or something is enough to tear through flesh. They can't live as cybernetic instruments alone. So and it's Data who winds up being the hero. He just puts a hole in the warp core and kills all the Borg in there, and she gets ripped apart. It's a really cool effect, actually, what they managed to do.
Yeah, it is.
And partially computer. I always thought that Borg skull was so awesome with the spinal cord attached to it, and it's just moving a little bit, and Picard picks it up and just breaks it in half.
Yeah,
very cold, very cold. And
I gotta ask though, okay?
Yeah.
Again, this movie ends. I mean, at the very end, but I'm saying. Picard has all this rage. He goes through all of this. He's not like when you go into the next one. He's fine. He's kind of back to normal Picard.
Maybe they give him a little vacation, or maybe they put him on involuntary leave because he did violate Starfleet orders there.
Yeah.
But thank you for saving us. Hey, what about saving humanity and all that stuff, right?
At the end of Nemesis, he seems kind of traumatized, but I think that kind of informs his the Picard series performance because he basically kills himself.
Yeah, but we did start. You remember we do start. If I remember correctly, Insurrection starts kind of light. There's a little bit of quote unquote humor in there.
Well, it's light, and then Data shows up, and all hell breaks loose.
Oh my God, that's going to be interesting when we get to that one.
It's not. I don't hate that movie. I do not hate that movie.
I mean, I felt like that. I think Insurrection was the Star Trek V of the series. That's what I think. I think it was.
Well, what's special for me is the fact that I got it. It's actually it's a collector's item on Laserdisc because it's such a late release. It's like a mid '99 release, which is like near the end of when they started making Laserdiscs. And it's, you get a good like in good condition used copy, $50-$60, and in sealed one is like probably like $80 to $100.
Any possible rot though? Would there be any rot on that?
No, no. These are solid Pioneer pressings near the end. They're fine.
Ah, okay.
But mine I got for $2. Got for $2. I got lucky.
$2. Jeez.
Yep.
Oh, that must have been like when everybody was switching over to DVD and Laserdisc.
No, I got it literally within the last year. I just,
okay.
I get it used at half price books. Got it for $2.
Again, though, that was like,
The only better score would be something like The Matrix, which is like costs like $300 because it's so rare.
That's ridiculous.
I know it is ridiculous. People should not be paying. I will only pay $2 for my discs if they're selling them. I'm like, I'm not. If it's a $5, I don't care.
So then we finally get to what this first contact was. They keep talking about it, but they never mention it, who the species is. And then that's where we get, this is where you feel like they're scraping the bottom of the barrel because, as you said before, you pointed this out, the Vulcan ship at the end does look a little cheap. Compared to the other effects, it looks almost like standard definition CGI for a TV show of the time. It felt like they needed that icing on the cake because what was all this for? If not for the first contact that we need to see. So
yeah, and actually I found something out in watching these Enterprise episodes of like they had first contact and then the Vulcans proceeded to hold back our warp program because they realized we're out of our shit and we don't know how to do anything and we can't be trusted with it and we really can't. So
well, I don't know. I would have to disagree with you on that because the Vulcans seem to while they act superior, this show Enterprise and all of Star Trek when you think about it, humans seem to be the most level-headed of most alien races.
There's an argument between T'Pol and can't remember the name of the character, Gary Graham.
The ambassador, Soval.
Ambassador guy. She's like, you held back their warp program for 100 years. Or something like that. Like, we've been holding back their warp program.
They had contributed to it, yeah, because they felt that humans weren't ready to go deep space.
And honestly, we're not. We certainly aren't now. We can't be trusted with anything right now.
Well, they did learn. I mean, the thing is, the most important part of this is Gene Roddenberry's vision, which is that we'll all eventually put aside our petty differences and learn to work together.
Gene Roddenberry's vision was much like Zephram Cochrane. He just wanted to be on an island.
Dollar signs, naked women everywhere.
Yeah.
We get the Vulcan ship, and then I'm gonna be that guy. I'm sorry, David, but you know how you always put that big fat guy with the computer going, actually, yeah. I'm gonna be the actually guy. The Vulcan greeting is wrong. Instead, they went for the more popular expression, which is live long and prosper, which is what you're supposed to say at the end of your association with a Vulcan. What a Vulcan actually says, is peace and long life.
I did not know that.
They do not say live long. You say live long and prosper when you're saying goodbye.
He did the thing with the hand.
Which
was great, because he did it, and then Zephram Cochrane couldn't do it, and I thought that was a great moment.
He could have said anything in the world. Live long and prosper was not the thing to say.
Also, somehow he speaks English. I'm always
yes, they have a universal translator thingamabobby. Yes. And and they also, like, later on when they reference this ending for the mirror episodes of Enterprise that occur in the 4th season, they change it. They change it to Zephram Cochrane trying to do the greeting, and then they do a quick cut, so you can't see James Cromwell's face, to him grabbing a shotgun and blowing the Vulcan away because they're evil human beings in the mirror universe. It's a fantastic counterpoint to the ending of this movie.
I know. The thing is, I forget stuff, but I know I watched, because I watched it. All of them.
And they rob and loot the Vulcans and take their technology, and they enslave the Vulcans, and that's the evil mirror universe.
Even had a great evil mirror theme song.
It was wonderful.
Evil.
And it showed, and was like a counterpoint to all the space, the Final Frontier, wonderful exploration thing. Instead, it was like this recording of all the atrocities and horrors that our mirror universe Starfleet did.
Mm-hmm.
Picard and the crew get to see the first contact, and then they beam up, and they go.
That's the end.
They just sort of go home in the temporal
they go home, and then the credits come up.
Magic bullshit machine. But can I point out that the ending of this movie is very similar to the way Star Trek V ended. Star Trek V ends with McCoy, Spock, and Kirk all at the campfire singing "Row, row, row your boat." We pan up.
Yeah.
Above the forest at night, and then you hear the same, practically almost the same theme that Jerry Goldsmith used.
Yes, because it's his motion picture theme that he's been recycling, which is great. It is his best. I would argue that Goldsmith's the motion picture score is probably his best. Period. I mean, I guess you like this one better.
I like this one more because it does something to me. It makes me feel.
Second for me would probably be Star Trek V.
I love his thing with the whole da, na, 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 na. It's wonderful, and the way the credits are, it makes it. It's like you felt like when you were watching Generations that it was sort of an extended episode of the show, and then also with Insurrection, this one feels. Although his score for Insurrection is fantastic, I love it. It reminds me a lot of some of the stuff he did, like Poltergeist. It had Poltergeist shades to it in it. But for First Contact, I mean, like, this to me is like his best. You know, and it's like not quite militaristic. Motion Picture was a very nice score. It got nominated for an Oscar, I believe. I'm not sure, but. It was very militaristic, kind of in the way that Horner's was too. James Horner sounded very, it sounded very naval. You know, Star Trek II.
Naval.
You know, like Navy, like the Navy.
Oh, okay. I went into a Bill Cosby routine. I keep playing with your navel.
And then I am not a big fan of Leonard Rosenman's score for Star Trek 4 because it had.
I swear I was just listening to that today, and I was like, "This is good."
You know what? I mean, I like Cliff Idleman's score for Star Trek 6. It was wonderful.
Oh, that's a good dark one too.
Yeah. And I was also thinking, to hell with our orders is a lot like Nimoy saying, if I were a human, I believe my response would be, go to hell. It was kind of a Johnny Carson thing. Go to hell.
Yeah, but he's
if I were human.
He's not an android. He wouldn't.
He can. I mean, like, well, this is a different Spock. It's a different Spock that has.
No, wait a minute. I just realized something, and this is something we didn't really talk about. It's the emotion chip. He's got the emotion chip, which they
know.
They fudge it. He's like, he turns it off,
but
then he turns it back, and she turns it back.
The thing is, if I were Starfleet, if I were Picard, I would order Data to not have the emotion chip on during regular work hours. Like if he wants to experiment with emotions on the holodeck with his emotion chip, possibly. I don't know about bridge duty. I don't know.
It's almost like, hey, look, if you want to cross dress, you do that on your own time.
Yeah, basically. I mean, like if you want to cross dress as a human or whatever, do it. Don't do it now. Like that's why Picard tells him maybe it's a good idea to turn off the emotion chip.
Which I don't think they changed it. I was like, didn't they explain that like once it's activated, it like fuses to his positronic matrix and it can't be undone? Wasn't that the whole point?
Yeah, it is quite possible. I believe you. I would believe you without even cross-referencing.
I think that it's in Generations when the thing is like floating and Geordi says, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because once you put it in, you can't undo it or something."
Yeah. And then what happens? He gets all face melty and weird and starts laughing uncontrollably. That's not something I would want to mess with on a starship.
Maybe they fixed it.
Coming to the end, all right? Like I said, this is probably by default my favorite Next Generation movie because it's very cinematic. I mean, the whole thing is incredibly cinematic. And I enjoyed it more than any other movie. I really did. I know you enjoyed.
Well, I don't hate it. I'm not mad. But I'm like, I want. Again, it's like the whole hype of the movie. Because at least for me, when I read because I read like about a year before it came out, I read in a magazine, and the next Generation movie is going to be about the Borg. This is the movie I want. And then I saw it, and I'm like, it's okay.
I was excited about it. Went to see it opening week. I was especially excited to see that Frakes directed.
I saw it opening day too. In fact, I have a whole story of like this was back when I was working. I was working at Pizza Hut. And the way it worked was I got out of work a little bit early and went because I used to make the dough. So I'd usually get out like by noon, but I wanted to get there at that first show, so I had to get out maybe like 10.
I thought they sent the dough to you prepackaged. I thought they sent all the ingredients.
Well, no, actually, no. For some things, maybe it's different now, but at the time, you had to you physically had to make the dough. Now we got the breadstick was dough. It was like that was frozen, and you put it in like a warmer thing, and then it would proof up, and then you could put it away. But I wanted to get out. So what I did was I kind of negotiated with my boss, and I said, look, if I can leave a little bit early. I will when I go, because this is before you could buy things online. I went to there and I bought a ticket for a later show for her and her friends. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of how I was able to negotiate, like getting out a little early. I just went and then I went and saw the movie, and then I drove back, or actually got a ride back, and gave her the tickets. And then I found out like later, like she didn't even remember like half the movie because like her and her friends were like rowdy and got drunk and came in late. And that whole thing. So I went and I was like, it was okay. It was okay. So that's my initial. And then I watch it. I've seen it a few times, and I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I think it's because other movies in the series have gone up for me that it maybe knocked it down, because like now Generations is like I kind of like a little bit. And Nemesis, when I saw it, I'm like, that was really good. So, I
couldn't forgive Generations. We talked about that. I can't forgive killing a character killing a whole family to advance a plot, and then the Nexus, which makes no sense to me. Never did.
I'll never forgive them for killing Star Trek.
I think I was working at Blockbuster Video around the time this movie came out, and I just went to go see it at the United Artists Theater on Steinway and Grand Avenue. How about that? A lot of fun. Anyway.
See, now we're all old. We're gonna have. I remember when you could actually go to a movie theater.
Go to a movie theater. Do you hear they're pushing back Bond to 2021?
What? I'm gonna look that up.
I heard. I got a
fuck you.
I got a news item thing popped up in my thing.
Shit, I'll look that up because if that's true, I'm like, just sell it for $50 online and I will buy it.
Oh, come on, man! James Bond was meant to be seen on a big screen.
Making decent profits now. They sold that Trolls movie, and they actually made probably more money than they would have made of it in the theater. So
well, a lot of people are just going to buy crap just to sit on their TV. But Bond was meant to be on the big screen, man. What are you talking about? And I'm going to see it. And what's more, if it is pushed back to 2021, it gives us more time to work on our show.
Yeah, that would be true.
All right, we should probably wrap this one up and go ahead and look at the Next Generation movies again. I have a very cute little DVD box set, but I bought that a long time before I even had a Blu-ray player.
People, and if you can't do that, they're always popping up on streaming services all the time, and it's this weird thing with. I always thought if they were going to sell, they always put them up. They buy them in like they buy the whole package, but now they don't. They'll buy up like you'll have like on Amazon Prime, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have the motion picture. They'll have 2. They'll have 3. They won't have 4. Then they won't have they don't have Nemesis.
Yeah, it's just like Epix. Epix shows them, but doesn't show 4, which is weird. It goes from Star Trek 3 to Star Trek 5.
Weird contract, and yet you could watch 4 if you have the Tubi app, and it's free with commercial Crackle, and it's free with commercials. So it's this weird thing where it's on something, and it's usually if it's not on some sort of streaming service that you buy, it's probably on some free service with commercials.
I don't believe it's raining again. It's raining again. It has been raining on and off for over a year in New York. I mean, it's like Seattle over here.
Yeah, it rained a little bit last night here, too.
It's ridiculous. All right.
Damn weather.
Okay, well, on that note, I'm David Lawler.
And I'm David Anderson.
And we'll see you at the movies.
Hopefully. Someday.
Oh, and here's a little Jerry Goldsmith on piano.